Okay, so what I thought I'd go through is how to write your rationale section. Now, you really should leave your rationale till the end or near the end of your writing process, because it really is just a wrap up at the end. And once you have a better idea of where your writing's going and the story that you're trying to tell, it's also going to help you out with the rationale. So the rationale is not a background, it's different to a background, and you'll start to see how it works as we go through this. Now, the best place to start if you're not sure what to do with these sections that you're writing is to have a look at the ISMG. So for the rationale, it's covered in this first part of the research and planning ISMG. So what we're trying to achieve with our rationale is to demonstrate informed application of understanding of properties and structure of materials or chemical reactions demonstrated by a considered rationale, identifying clear development of the research question from the claim. So the two big things that we're trying to demonstrate here is a considered rationale, and it has to have clear development. Okay, so when I was doing this, I was like, okay, I'm not quite sure what it means by considered rationale. So I went to the chemistry syllabus and I said, okay, well, in the syllabus, it's got some definitions for terms, and what it says in there is considered is formed after careful and deliberate thought. So that just means that your rationale is considered and you've gone through this process of thinking about and developing your research question. So if you've gone through that planning process and you've filled out your planner, well, you've definitely considered, you've formed after careful and deliberate thought. You haven't just randomly come up with something. So we need to show that it's considered, and we need to show clear development of the research question from the claim. So in my example, here's my claim from my example planning in the last couple of videos, and here's the question that we got to. So our general claim is biofuels are more efficient and have less environmental impact than fossil fuels. And my specific question is the combustion of biodiesel more efficient than petroleum-based diesel in terms of energy output, so enthalpy, and CO2 emissions? Now, the goal here for our rationale is to show how did we get from this general claim down to this specific question. And when you went through that planning with the planning sheet, this is exactly what you did during this process. So when I came up with my research question, there are a few different aspects in here. So there was biofuels, efficient, environmental impact, and fossil fuels. So what I want to do in my rationale is demonstrate how did I get from biofuels to biodiesel? How did I get from fossil fuel to diesel? How did I get from efficiency to enthalpy? And how did I get from environmental impact to CO2 emissions? So what you want to do in your writing of your rationale is tell the story of how you went from, again, the claim to our specific research question. So you're trying to write, how did you get from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, and from there to there? So in my example, and if I was writing my rationale, I would say something along the lines of, biofuels are any fuel developed from organic materials. One example of a biofuel is biodiesel. In contrast, fossil fuels are developed from fossilized materials, or whatever the definition that you find. There are many examples of fossil fuels, one being diesel. Biodiesel was chosen to compare to diesel as they have similar applications. In order to assess whether biodiesel is better than diesel, Or is it more efficient than diesel? Enthalpy can be measured. Enthalpy is the energy content of the compound, and so on. And then you would get to the point where you're like, environmental impact can be measured in many ways. One important environmental impact is CO2 emissions. Therefore, it's important to consider whether biodiesel has lower CO2 emissions. So you're trying, while that's not perfect, it would be a good start. And you can see how I'm trying to tell the story of how I got from these general terms to the specific terms. And really, a nice little way to finish this off is there down here is, therefore it is important to consider whether biodiesel is more efficient than petroleum-based diesel in terms of energy output and CO2 emissions. So you can see how you're trying to lead the reader to your question, and you're trying to inform the reader so that they realize why you're asking that question. Okay, so why is this an important question to answer? So if you keep that in mind, your rationale will be spot on. You'll hit those considered rationale and clear development, and you'll get in that 5 and 6 category. So just keep in the back of your mind as you're writing rationale, this is not a background. What I'm trying to do is tell the reader the story of how I got from a claim down to a specific research question.